Be bold. Be heard. Welcome to Every Story Matters with your host, Jessica Bell.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Every Story Matters. I have Zalayne Thomas with us today. Again, she has an amazing story that needs to be heard, and it needs to be heard clearly. So I thank you for everyone who tuned in last week, but this week we got it together, and I know her story is going to bless us. So Zalayne, you can get started. Just share a little bit about who you are, some of the things you overcome, and we can go from there.
Hey everybody, I'm Zalayne. I've overcome a lot, and I'm proud of it. I am 34 years old. I have had 4 open heart surgeries, 6 strokes, 2 heart attacks, and gone into cardiac arrest twice. I'm also the natural mom of one 15-year-old who isn't even supposed to be here because I wasn't even supposed to be able to have children. So there's that. I had my first open heart surgery when I was 3 weeks old. I had my second open heart surgery when I was a year old. I had my third open heart surgery when I was 15 years old. I had my fourth open heart surgery when I was 24 years old. And between the ages of 1 and 15, I went to the hospital countless times. My mom passed away when I was 3 years old. My dad kind of went and did his own thing. But we're grateful for him. And he just died 2 years ago, like 2 days before Christmas. So my grandparents raised me, and they are dope. Matthew and Rose Thomas are amazing people. And they were with me through everything. And that was hard because you can't play sports, you can't fall, you can't cut yourself, you can't live a normal kid life. So it was difficult, but I have had a fabulous support system the whole way from start to now. Sisters, aunties, uncles, pastors, friends, sister friends, brother friends. I have a dope village. So.
All right. So I know that you talked about some of the things that you have overcame as far as your health. So what were some of the ways that you stayed encouraged through that? I know it's not easy when you're uncertain about something as big and as serious as your health and your well-being. So I know you said you had an amazing support system, but were there some other things maybe that you did as far as praying, scriptures, that kind of thing that you stood on in times when you were on?
Absolutely. I love the whole Psalm 139. And no matter which way I go, up or down or in between, God is with me. And that has held me when the times were tough. I grew up in the Baptist church. I knew the hymns like the back of my hand, like the old green book with the yellow pages. That's the hymn book that I hold near and dear to my heart. And when it gets rough, I will pull up a hymn on YouTube in a minute, like, you need to give me a moment. I need to get my life. Then we're going to be all right. Some people say they need their coffee first. Nah, I need to get my Jesus in before I go off.
I definitely, yeah, I understand that for sure. What do you think, or maybe one or two or three things that were the most impactful things in your life? So I know you've had a lot, and your story is still continuing, and God is still using everything you've gone through. But as far as who you are today, what are a couple of things that you think kind of really shaped you and let you know, like, okay, this is my story. I'm going to live it. I'm going to do the best I can with what God's given me?
One of the things that solidifies this life here for me is that even though I'm 34 years old, I still go to a children's hospital. I've had the same cardiologist my whole life. I apologize if my cat gets in on this video. He's trying to be close because it's storming in Pittsburgh and he's scared. There he is. Um, uh, and my cardiologist, all his patients who started with me, all of them have passed away except me. So I'm his oldest patient. And that lets me know, and that solidifies that I have purpose and that I'm meant to be here. Just, I always say my hope is built. Like, it's not doesn't need to be validated on anybody or anything. Like, my hope is built, and I serve a God who predestined me to this point. So I definitely know that he will predestine me to eternity. That's what keeps me.
And so, what do you think? What do you think lets you, or what is it that makes you have such a positive attitude? Because I know people who have gone through far less than you, who walk around and maybe they feel defeated, or they feel like it's just like the end of the world. And so, what is it that makes you have such a positive attitude to say, like, look, I've gone through these things, but my head's gonna stay up. I'm gonna still keep smiling and be hopeful. What do you think that is?
One thing that keeps me positive is that when I had my second open heart surgery, the doctors told my grandparents that I wasn't going to live past 10. So every day I look at every day as a challenge. So I'm excited. It's kind of like a game, like the most dangerous game. So it's like, let me see what I can do to change it. Let me see how I can do what I can do to be impactful. Let me see what I can do to make sure that this day counts. Like every moment counts. And, not to sound cheesy or anything, but every breath matters.
No, that doesn't sound cheesy at all. I mean, I know that's, and I feel like for me personally, that's easier said than done when you're in difficult situations. But it's definitely something that you have to be able to hold on to. So I know you talked a little bit about your daughter, and you said she was not supposed to be here. So can you just talk a little bit about that? And just, I know there are some people watching who are struggling with fertility, or they're wanting to have children, or they're just really holding on to the promise of, um, you know, desiring a child. So can you just dive into that just a little bit?
So, Phoenix was not supposed to be here. I remember a couple of days before I had my third surgery, the doctors called us all into the room and told my grandparents, like, we don't recommend that she has children or gets pregnant because I take a blood thinner. It's called Coumadin, and 87% of women cannot carry children. So they just recommend that you don't get pregnant at all. But, I wanted to live my best life. So I was like, bump that. Sorry, Jesus. I'm going to take this exit. And I got on birth control. And my birth control and my heart medication canceled each other out. So I got pregnant. And I didn't find out I was pregnant until I was 11 weeks pregnant. So yeah, and I found out I was pregnant on Halloween. Like the nurse came in the room and was like, trick or treat. It was like, first of all, that's the devil. Second of all, treat. And she was like, oh, you're very pregnant. I was like, what? Um, so
Wow.
so I had to I had to change my medication. I went from taking like a couple pills every day to giving myself shots twice a day. Um, it was a rough it was a rough pregnancy. I only gained 11 pounds. I threw up from the day after I found out to the day she was born. Um, she was born at 2 pounds 7 ounces, 15 inches long. She stayed in the NICU for 28 days. They called her the screamer in part 6 because all she did was pull the tubes out her nose and scream. She was only there to grow. And now she's 15 and she's like 5'8", and you would never believe she was that small unless you saw pictures of her. Like still to this day, I'll show her pictures and she'll say, "Who's that?" Well, what other baby do you see? Do you see running around here? But to those who are waiting, to those who are holding on to the promise, to those who are believing God, all things in His time, not our time. Remember, His thoughts and our thoughts are not the same. Our time and His time is not the same. It may feel right, but it may not look right. You have to remember that the Father views our lives differently than we view our lives. So, and He's intentional in blessing His children. So just stay close and keep on trying and keep on praying and don't lose hope because it will come to you in His time.
Thank you for that. And I know that definitely is means a lot to some people, and to a lot of people who, even if they're not waiting for a child, just waiting in general is just something that's difficult to do when there's something that you're going to God for, or you're believing, or just a desire. Maybe you're maybe not even in the position to like have a child yet, but it's something you desire. So I appreciate you sharing that and being transparent and open about that. What do you think? Are there any other parts of your story you think that were significant turning points for you? So I know you talked about being your doctor's oldest patient and you having a child when you're not supposed to have one. So to me, it sounds like your story is filled with so many like you weren't supposed to, but it happened anyway. And so, do you have other moments like that? Or is there anything else that kind of stands out to you along those same kind of lines?
Absolutely. When I had my first heart attack, I remember driving myself to the hospital. I remember thinking that it was just heartburn. I'd never had heartburn before, but I swore up and down it was heartburn and I was fine and I could drive myself to the hospital. I remember the whole process of being checked in and swept back to the EKG machine for them to find out what was going on and for them to take a quick x-ray. And I remember my daughter, she was probably in like probably in like third grade or something. So she was young. And I remember hearing them say, everybody get out of the room because I coded. And I coded twice that day. And the first time I coded, like I said, I remember everything that happened. And the second time I coded was in the helicopter when I was being life flighted from, I was in like a hospital kind of outside of the city, a suburban hospital, to a hospital that was a trauma center that was more apt to take care of me. Um, so I do remember popping up in a helicopter, but that's all I remember until the next morning. And the doctor came in with a notepad and he asked me, was I okay? And I wrote yes. And he said, I want you to know that only 7% of people survive what you just went through. It's called the Widowmaker for a reason. And I said, wow. And he said, no more talking. And that did something for me. Like, wow, you really are God's favorite. He just keeps giving you grace upon grace upon grace upon grace.
Wow. And I can't even imagine, honestly, going through something like that. But I could imagine, like, that it gives you an extreme amount of purpose, because you know that at any point that could have been your last time, and God keeps saying he's not done, he still has more for you. And I think that's so amazing. So where does your story go from here? Like I always say, like, I love that stories are ever evolving, that they change, that as long as we're alive, we still have something left that God is calling us to do. So what do you think, what does your story look like moving forward?
So I think my story is expanding. I teach Sunday school. I teach Bible study. I like to deal hope to my friends. Like I saw that's on your page too. Like I'm a hope dealer. I like to encourage people. And when the time is right, I hope that God will allow me to write a book and be able to share my story across the world. Like I want to be, I don't want to be like a life coach, but I want to motivate people like, oh no, you can do it, because clearly I've done it all these times. I just want to be the hands and feet of Jesus wherever that takes me.
And if you could just take a couple of minutes to speak directly to somebody who might be going through something similar as you, or just anything that God places on your heart to talk to the people who are listening today, just to encourage them to overcome if they're dealing with health issues, or they don't know what's next for their story. If you could just take a couple minutes to pour into them and to encourage them, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Brothers and sisters, all I would say to you is to lean on your Father. Not only lean on your Father, but lean in on your Father. He knows how much we can bear. I know it's kind of like cliche that he hasn't given us more than we can bear, and he actually hasn't, I promise. And just lean in on him and learn to trust him in the spaces that you can't trace him, in the spaces that you don't understand. And it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to have a bad moment. But what is not okay is to stay stuck. So shake yourself off. What I do is when I get overwhelmed, I journal and then I burn it up. The thoughts are gone, never to be heard of again. And just release, because our Father is more than willing and more than able to carry and strengthen us through whatever he has allowed us to come to.
Amen. Thank you so much. I appreciate you doing this again for me, and so that your story can be heard. I love you so much. Thank you for blessing me, and I know that we'll continue talking. And thank you for sharing your story again.
You're welcome. All right, love you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for viewing Every Story Matters. Be sure to tune in next time when Jessica takes her mic off mute as she continues her journey to find stories that inspire and uplift our communities.